Subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon so that you know when live we go. There's a news article on page number 5. Agri-credit societies to be set up in all panchayats, says the Minister of Cooperatives, Mr. Amit Shah. Before we start discussing the topics, let me quickly take you through the relevant questions of previous years. UPSC has asked back in 2011, in India, which of the following have the highest share of disbursement of credit to agriculture and the allied activities? Commercial banks, cooperative banks, regional rural banks, or microfinance institutions? After a decade, UPSC asked a similar question because the problem still persists. UPSC has asked in 2020 prelims exam, in terms of short-term credit delivery to agriculture sector, district central cooperative banks deliver more credit in comparison of scheduled commercial banks and regional rural banks. It's quite the same thing. They are again asking which institution or which category of institutions deliver more credit to rural region in agriculture and allied sector. The cooperatives or commercial banks or regional rural banks. The second statement in the question was, one of the most important functions of district central cooperative banks is to provide funds to primary agriculture credit societies. You take a pause, think it through, and come to an answer for both the questions. As and when we discuss the relevant information in the course of discussion, I'll bring you back to the questions. But before that, you should have an answer ready. UPSC has asked in 2021 prelims, with reference to urban cooperative banks in India, consider the following statements. They are supervised and regulated by local boards set up by the state governments. They can issue equity shares and preference shares. They were brought under the purview of Banking Regulation Act 1949 through an amendment in 1966. Also, for this question, try and think of an answer regardless whether you have prepared urban cooperative banks or not. In the prelims exam that you will give, there will be many topics that you will not have prepared beforehand. But it is your presence of mind and general intelligence that will help you sail through the prelims exam. So use a bit of your intelligence or intuition and decide on a correct option to this question. See, credit is one of the important supply side factors which contribute to agricultural production and productivity. So an efficient and effective rural credit delivery system is important for raising farmers' income and overall rural development. So the government must work for equitable access to institutional credits because there is a scarcity of credit in the overall economy and the informal credits are very costly. But in pursuing this goal, government faces problem because there are systemic and persistent issues in rural credit. Historically, there has been regional disparity in rural credit, especially to agriculture. The southern states, they have absorbed the rural credit very well. Also the western states. But the eastern and the northeastern states, there the presence of grassroots credit institution is very, very suboptimal. Also, according to many NABARD reports over the period, it has been observed that the formal credit is not equally accessible and affordable across gender, caste, and class. But perhaps the biggest institutional problem is poor loan recovery for rural agricultural credit. This can be corroborated with the fact that 52% of agricultural households in our country, they are indebted according to the recent NABARD report. Many of the institutions at district and grassroots level, they do not have financial health and hence they are not eligible for refinance capacity from NABARD. NABARD give money to many of the cooperatives so that these cooperatives can do financing for agriculture and rural development. That is refinancing. But if the institutional capacity is not there, then they are ineligible for refinancing facility from NABARD. Overall, if we see, as per the latest NABARD report in the last fiscal year, 16.5 lakh crore was given as credit for agriculture. And out of the 16.5 lakh crore, the highest amount, 11.8 lakh crore, comes from commercial banks. This is the lion's share of the overall agricultural credit. The cooperative banks and the regional rural banks, they amounted for around 1.9 lakh crore each. If you look at in terms of overall percentage, commercial banks contributed 73% of agricultural credit. Cooperative banks and regional rural banks around 13 to 14%. If I bring you back to this question, which is the biggest lender? Which institution has the highest share in disbursement to agricultural credit? The answer is hands down commercial banks. They don't even come anywhere near to commercial banks. If you look at this graph even more closer, you will realize that cooperative banks and regional rural banks largely give credit for crop loan. The term loan comes from the commercial bank. Government of India has taken many initiatives to increase agricultural credit over the period of time. You will be aware from your basic economic knowledge that all scheduled commercial banks they are required to lend 18% of their net bank credit towards agriculture. And within this 18%, there's a sub target of 8% to be lended to small and marginal farmers. You would know that the vast majority, around 86% of farmers in India, they fall under this category of small and marginal farmers. And even though the commercial banks, they are the biggest creditor by any margin compared to cooperative banks and regional rural banks for agricultural credit. But that's not the entire picture. If we talk in terms of credit to small farmers and marginal farmers, the majority of the credit comes from these institutions, cooperative banks and regional rural banks. So if I redraw the chart only for small farmers and marginal farmers, the length of the graph will actually change. So strengthening these institutions are more, perhaps, if not equally important. In the same line as scheduled commercial banks, regional rural banks, they are also required to disburse 18% of their total credit to agriculture and 8% to small and marginal farmers. In addition to these, Department of Agriculture, Cooperation and Farmers Welfare, it implements an interest subvention scheme. And as per this scheme, interest subvention of 2% per annum is given to banks for agricultural credit. This is done to keep the interest rate for agriculture low. The target is to maintain it within 7%. Apart from interest subvention to banks, under the scheme, farmers also get interest subvention of 3% if they promptly repay back their loan. So if a farmer is repaying back the loan, the overall interest that he has to pay is around 4%. Apart from these, government lately also has allowed for credit against the warehouse receipts, and such credit is also eligible for interest subvention. Because of these initiatives, as per the recent report of NABARD, the share of a small and marginal farmer in the overall agricultural credit has increased from about 60% in 2015 to 72% by the end of 2017. That's the latest data that we have. And in the larger architecture of cooperative credit institutions, there are two broad categories: urban cooperative banks and rural cooperative credit institutions. In the category of institutions that give short-term credit, there is a three-tier system: state cooperative banks, district central cooperative banks, and in the third tier, we have primary agricultural credit societies. And this is the institution that the cooperative minister wants to strengthen further. This is the third tier in the rural cooperative credit institution, so it is a grassroots institution. The history of primary agricultural cooperative credit societies in India begins with the enactment of Cooperative Societies Act in 1904. And basically, it was guided by Refessen model. Refessen was a German mayor, and he established the empirical relation between poverty and dependency. And he suggested that the only escape from poverty is to break dependency first. And for that, he suggested 3S: self help, self governance, and self responsibility. And these 3S are the basis for PACs. PACs borrow adequate and timely funds from district central cooperative banks. If I bring you back to discussion, one of the most important functions of district central cooperative banks is to provide funds to PACs, which is absolutely basic and correct. And you know that district central cooperative banks are no match to scheduled commercial banks for agricultural credit. First of all, they mobilize the local savings. They build a shared capital coming from the deposits from the villages. and they have the power to supervise the credits and lendings from this capital. But apart from disbursing credit, they perform a plethora of activities. They can distribute fertilizers, insecticides, seeds, and other inputs to the farmers. They can also distribute consumer goods like rice, wheat, sugar, kerosene. They can also manage machinery based on sharing and hiring basis. They can also plan and implement programs being run by the government. They can provide marketing facility to the farmers. They can do marketing of the farmers' produce. They can also provide storage facilities. But what they don't do presently is to get involved in infrastructural development at the large scale. They also don't deal with subsidies or revenue estimation. These institutions, being the grassroots institutions, they can play a very crucial role in the rural economy. Now, let me bring you back to discussion. We have discussed PACs largely, and that comes under rural cooperative institutions. We haven't done urban cooperative banks, but still you can attempt discussion. In the final exam that you'll give, you have to attempt many questions based on topics that you have never covered. But it will be your intelligence and intuition that will help you sail through the prelims exam. Statement 1 says that they are supervised and regulated by local boards set up by the state governments. And statement 3 says they were brought under the purview of Banking Regulation Act of 1949. If statement 3 is correct, if they were brought under the purview of Banking Regulation Act, then they must be governed by RBI. The regulator now becomes RBI. So if statement 3 is correct, statement 1 has to be incorrect. So statement 3 and 1 won't come together. 3 and 1, 3 and 1, they won't come together. Now you have to decide whether statement 1 is correct or 2 and 3 are correct. Since it's a bank, no matter urban cooperative bank or rural cooperatives or regional banks, if it's a bank, it must be governed by RBI. Although not always, but mostly. So if you have to choose, you must be more likely to choose option B. There is an article on page number 5. Rahul Gandhi cites Basaveshwara's teachings. We will quickly brush up the concept of Basaveshwara's and Lingayat.
First of all, the Lingayat sect is a Shaivite sect. And Shaivite sects have the theological basis of Advait, meaning monoism. But then there are various subsects within the sect of Shaivite, like for example Vishisht Advait or qualified monoism. Lingayat sect, which is a kind of Shaivite sect, follows the theology of qualified monoism, Vishisht Advait. Meaning there is Advait, there is no dualism, there is monoism. But it is qualified monoism, meaning the Jiva and Brahma are the same, they get united once there is salvation, but still they do not become one. That distinction is still there even when Jiva gets united with Brahma. Jiva is similar to Brahma but not the same. If it is the same, that is monoism. In qualified monoism, Jiva is similar to Brahma, not the same. But more specifically, the theology of Lingayat sect is called as Shakti Vishisht Advait. The sect was founded by Lord Basava, who was minister of King Bijala Kalachuri of Chalukyas of Kalyani. The theology of Lingayat was not new. It was based on Ramanuja's qualified monoism. But the Lingayat sect was noteworthy for the social doctrine that was propounded by Lord Basava. Although found in many parts of the country, but they are predominantly found in the Mysore region and some parts of Andhra Pradesh. In Karnataka, they form 17% of the total population. The theology is very similar to Ramanuja's Vishisht Advait, but more specifically it is called as Shakti Vishisht Advait, where God is conceived to be qualified by Shakti or cosmic energy. Yoga and meditation are the paths to achieve the cosmic energy, and Lingayats do not do idol worship. As I have told you, the sect stood out because of the social doctrine. Lord Basava tried to bring complete equality in the society. He challenged the Brahminical domination, raised voice against the caste system, untouchability, gender inequality, Vedic supremacy. He opposed all kind of ritualistic worship, all kind of sacrifice, even pilgrimage. Lord Basava set up Anubhav Mandapa, where all men and women were welcomed from all socio-economic backgrounds to discuss spiritual questions of life. Lord Basava popularized his social awareness message through poetries which were called as Vachanas. These Vachanas are considered to bring Renasa in the Kannada literature. Lord Baswa also coined the slogan of Kayakav Kailasa, which means work is worship. The message is similar to the message given by Swami Vivekananda. The goal is to set a standard in society where all work are valued. No work is considered menial. Respect is given to all, not depending upon the kind of work people are doing in society. That is very, very important to fight untouchability, to fight the caste system hierarchy which has been made artificially in the society. He promoted widows' remarriage. Concerning theology, you have to know that Lingayats oppose image worship. In this sect, only sacred image is the Linga of Lord Shiva. Lingayats do not eat meat, they don't smoke, they don't drink. Lingayats also oppose cremation and they follow the burial rituals. The sacred literature of Lingayats are in Karnese and Telugu. This much about Lingayat will suffice for the examination.
In today's newspaper, there are many articles which are important, but they already have been covered in the previous DNS. So there is not much to discuss today. I'll quickly give you the references. In case you just want to go and brush up the concept, you can refer to these DNS. There is an article on the dark sky that was previously covered on 5th of September. There is also an article on bank disinvestment. This issue has been covered previously in detail on 26th August 2022. There is also an article on India-UK Free Trade Pact. In this regard, since the pact has not been signed, we may just discuss the basic of free trade agreements that previously on multiple occasions have been discussed in the DNS. With this, today you had an easy day. Take the opportunity to revise things and attempt tomorrow's DPP. Goodbye, take care.